your name on it.
What it's all about is for us to just really learn, right? I haven't been in this industry for very long. Um, I'll be my 2 years in November, 2 years of having my real estate license, and I'm hoping to have my broker's license pretty quickly here. Um, but for me, is just like I did in other industries. Like my goal is to try to be the best that I can be for myself, and just kind of improve on that. So whenever I find somebody that's interesting, or the team finds somebody that's interesting, like we gravitate towards that because that's somebody who we want to learn from. So, so yeah, Joe, I'll let you tell your story.
Okay.
You can start with your background, and you guys, let's give her a round of applause for being here.
So thank you, Leo and Norma, for inviting me. I'm not a professional speaker, so I'm just here to share my knowledge to help other people do what I do, and to know that anybody can do this if they have the mind to do it. You know, it takes to pull the trigger, like you said. So, just like what they had to do today with moving the venue, one of the things that me and my business partner, do is we always expect to have problems. That way, if we expect to have problems, we're not disappointed, and we just figure out a way to go through it. So, you know, and that's what we do. So if we're already expecting to have a problem, it's much easier to just move around it, you know, and that's what you have to do with investing. You got to expect to have problems because there's a lot of them. So just a little bit about me, some fun facts. Okay. This is my husband, Bob. Been with him for 44 years. On Thanksgiving Day, it's going to be my 43-year anniversary married to him. Yes, I am in my 60s. I'm not what people think. Most of my friends run from anywhere from the 20s to the 80s. So I've got friends in all venues and all different ways. I always say I don't have ordinary friends, I have extraordinary friends, because they all have special qualities. And I'm kind of, what you see is what you get. I'm a little bit, as you can see, I'm a little bit eccentric. I'm a little bit gypsy. I'm a little bit hippie. I'm a little bit country. I'm a little bit hard rock. I'm a little bit biker chick, all combined. And so everybody always tells me, man, I don't know where you get your style or who styles you, but you can pull it off. I don't think I ever could. And I just tell everybody, you know what? This is just me. I'm totally comfortable with it. So I just rock it. And that's the same thing. Anybody can pull off what they feel comfortable with, you know? So I'm not afraid to go out and do that. I was very shy in school. I was the person that stood in the back. I helped everybody, but I did not want to be noticed. And so, you know, those are the people that nobody thinks is going to be out doing this kind of thing. So just to let you know, I had a scholarship. I finished school early. I met him when I was 16. I finished school early and had a scholarship. I married him at 17. I walked away from it. And I went to live in Japan. I got pregnant with my first child at 19 and came home back here. After living in Japan, he was in the Marine Corps. Today's the Marine Corps birthday, so Semper Fi. So he had to do a big Marine Corps celebration today. So I lived as a military life over there, not an easy life, and not in Japan, and not being blonde like this. You know, they weren't used to seeing white women with blonde hair, and so I was kind of an anomaly to them. The kids would touch me and want to see me, and like I wasn't what they saw. They thought I was like some goddess, you know. And 19 years old, I went to school to be a teacher, and I love children. They're still my heartbeat, you know. I still love children. I do everything I can with children. I work in the church with children, and so that was what I was going to be. I was going to be a teacher for little ones. You know, I've worked in nurseries. I've worked in all that. I have two sons. One's 40, one's 36. And my daughter-in-law, I call her my daughter-in-law because she's not my daughter-in-law. She's been with me since she was 16. She's 39. And I've got 5 grandchildren that are my heaven and earth. I move everything for them. And that's one great thing about being in this business. I can do whatever I want. I pick them up from school 5 days a week. Wednesdays I get out early. I take them to lunch, and I still work, and I still get all this done. I started out when I came back at 20, I started out in hard money. I went to work for a place that was called ITT Financial. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but in the day, they sold out to HFC. They did all hard money at 27%, but they would give you a loan just off of having a social security number if you had a credit, or well, credit scores weren't even in that, if you got a guaranteed certificate. So they also did real estate. So I learned hard money real estate I was a branch manager. I was the only one of 2 females that made it to a branch manager in the whole company across the United States. I was the youngest. The other one was sleeping with the CEO. So I made it on my hard work. She made it on her merit. But I was in a field that was not woman dominated. But I'm just determined. I'm very, I push hard with what I want. And I just wanted to be in some kind of finance. I've always been a numbers person. I went to school to be a CPA. And so I kind of started in that. And so I started doing hard money loans. But I used to have to do milk runs to pick up checks. Milk runs is when they know you're going to pick up payments. Okay. And I had to do chases. This is when they don't know. I had to do it deep into Santa Ana, into LA. I had to do it when all the Rodney King stuff happened. And little old me in my 20s used to go in there to make these guys give me checks. He used to go with me. I had a big 4x4. And when the Rodney King stuff was there, I'm like, we're bringing the big 4x4. It was up on big, huge tires. I'm like, we're going to go over those rails if they come after me. So let's just go and get the check and let's go. But this is how I started. I started out in hard money. And so the ITT sold out in the mid 80s. They closed their doors. And so I had been doing loans for real estate. So I started, and I used to pass off my loans that they would have went with me at that 27%, but I knew they could get it at 12 outside. That was what the rate was back then, 10, 12. And I'm like, nope, I've got to pass them on. So I passed on to somebody to do the loans because I just didn't feel right. They just would do the loan with me just because of me. So I would pass those loans off. And then I decided to go start working on my own. So in the late 80s, I started working on my own with somebody and just started following them all that. Didn't get my license because I went to a place that told me I didn't need a license. Then they got raided. Okay. So they got totally raided. And thank God that my name wasn't on anything, but I was with someone. And so a lot of people went down. And I left that place, and that place was doing really well in the 80s. But, soon we boomed in 91. We boomed, and then we had a crash. So I had to go on my own in 93 when nobody was doing loans with anybody. It just crashed. So I've been through 4 crashes. If you can call COVID a crash, it's coming on a crash. But I've been through the savings and loan crash. I've been through 4 crashes or 4 market changes. So at that point, I just got my license and I started working with people. And unfortunately, some of the people weren't great. I saw a lot of bad things being done that doesn't fit my moral lifestyle. And so I decided, to go around. So I went to a couple of different places. I got into doing seconds and running their seconds divisions. And that's when piggyback loans were a big thing. So I did a lot of piggybacks and I ran that. I worked for a place called Mark One Mortgage, which was really big. I still know him. He's still in Orange.
Yeah, his building's still here.
Yeah. His building is in my old office building. Wow. It was my office. Yeah. And he took it over when I moved out. Yeah. And I moved into Irvine. Yeah. So, but I started with him. He knows me well. Mark knows me well. And I liked what he had to say. He's a Christian. I'm a Christian. It aligned with what I want to do. And basically, I started working with him. And I stayed there until 2000 when I got my own broker's license. So from 93 to 2000, I worked with him, got my broker's license, and I spun off in an office right next to him, and Mark and I have remained friends for a very long time. And so got my broker's license, started running my own real estate branch and mortgage branch because back in the day, there was no NMLS. And the only way you could do real estate and mortgage was if you had it under the same house, same broker. You couldn't have a real estate over here and another broker. So I had all these people that wanted to do real estate that dabbled in mortgage, or people that did mortgage and dabbled in real estate. So I gave them a chance. I gave single moms a chance to come in. I trained them to start learning real estate. And I took them by their side. I did their loans. Him and I both trained him on what to do. He has his real estate license since 97. I made him get his. And so I put him down as the manager of my real estate branch. I ran an escrow, did an in-house escrow. So all my refis for sell by owners, I did. Anything that was a purchase with, I always put through another escrow. So I did all those. So I had an escrow going. So I know escrow like the back of my hand. And so that's what started. I did that for 28 years. I ran my own mortgage brokerage, so I did finance for 28 years. So I did that till 2012. So 2000 through 2012, I did the brokering. 2012, I met my partner in 2011. And at that time, when I met him, super smart guy, I met him and they had some technology. They called me on the phone. My dad had just passed away. I was at a turning point in my life. My dad was my mentor. He was an entrepreneur, super close to my dad. And he had just passed away. And I was really just praying, like, Lord, what do I do? Because it was 2012. We were knee deep in the mortgage crash. It was horrible. My agents were struggling. I was trying to help them. They were getting jobs at Starbucks to make it, and I was trying to help them. So I let everybody go home. It was Memorial Weekend. I let them go home. And we have a nightline, and someone didn't put on the nightline. And I was up front just going through emails. And I saw this email, and I clicked on it. Right. And then, so I'm reading how all these agents had turned their business around, and they were just doing phenomenal with this technology. And this is the same technology that Joe Holmes uses. That's how I met Joe, because he wanted my technology. So what ended up happening is I got a phone call. Lo and behold, well, normally I don't answer the phone when everybody's gone. I let everybody go early on that Friday for the holiday weekend. I don't answer the phone, but I picked it up. Someone's calling me, and they know, like Big Brother, that in 2011, this is when Big Brother wasn't that big. They know that I've been looking at what I've looked at, every property I looked at on there, every single advertisement I looked at on there. They knew exactly what I had done. And I'm like, I'm by myself going, is somebody in here? Like, I'm freaking out. I had an office right on the circle over there where Mark One is. Well, they're next door to it now. They used to be in the one right there where Wanda Bogarts used to be. So what ended up happening is there's a girl on there, and I'm like, nope, I'm not partnering with anybody. I only partner with God and my husband. I learned a long time ago, I'm not partnering with anybody else. I've been burned too many times. Lo and behold, I told him, okay, they got something really good that I think my agents might be able to do to help them. And that's always my MO. I'm always looking for ways to help other people succeed in business. So I told him, you're going with me, because you're going to be the hammer. If I need to get out of there, you're going to be the hammer and say, let's go. We're not doing this. Right. And so they went in there, and I started talking to them. My wheels started spinning, because I could see that, like, this guy had something special. And I'm just like, man. So in 2007, he had been a lender in 48 states. They also ran a real estate office in Hawaii and California. And they had this technology that was like out of this world. I'm just like, I've never seen anything like this. And they even wrote technology for lending that I'd never seen anything like it, that was way advanced to what we are today. It's even not up to what he had, was not even up to par with where we're at today in technology. And I'm just like, man, this guy's a genius. And he started saying, well, we could open up a mortgage bank. I was like, mortgage bank? Like, that takes a lot of money. He's like, you could do this, you could get FDIC insured. And so always wanted to do that, but I was afraid. I'm like, I'm a broker. At that time, just to be FHA approved to be a broker, you had to have $100,000 liquid in the bank. I had to keep it in for every approval every year. I had to move 100,000. I pulled money out of 401ks. I pulled money from everywhere, and had to sit there for 4 months every year. Okay, so I had to pull it back. I pulled from equity lines. I did whatever I had to do. And then they took that away from us, and the lenders can only do it. So at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, it's like $1 million to be a mortgage banker. And so he's like, okay, I'll back you. And I'm like, really? So I started doing it. I'm like, okay. And I partnered with him 11 days later. And that was not 11 days from when I met him. That was 11 days from when I talked to him on the phone. I said, I only partner with God and my husband. That's it. I'm not partnering with anybody, not giving my real estate company up, not giving my mortgage company up. And so what he saw in me was a chance to do the mortgage and be a mortgage bank. So what ended up happening, long story short, it turned into $3 million to open a mortgage bank. I'm like, oh, that's never going to happen. I don't have $3 million. I'm never going to have $3 million in the middle of a mortgage crash in 2012, 2011, when everything was at its worst. I'm like, where am I going to pull that? Nobody's doing loans right now. And so what ended up happening, I had a good friend, and I partnered with him, and we opened our own branch that he already had, and he's in 27 states, and I'd known him for a long time. And I took a branch under him, and I fund the branch, but he's the person that has already started. So I took something that somebody else did, instead of me inventing the wheel, I took something that was already ready to go, a relationship that I had. I just started searching around because I thought, yeah, 3 million seems not possible, but I found a way. And I didn't have to come in with a dime. I had to come in with $45,000 to start it up. Okay. And it was 15,000 for me because we did it with 3 people. And that's it to fund my P&L. And I started doing loans. So that's how I got started being a mortgage banker. So I'm a direct lender. I'm also a broker, so I can broker. I have the best of both worlds. And most direct lenders, they don't know how to broker. I know how to shop, but I know how it is to be a direct lender. My underwriter's my own. You know, they love me because my files are clean. I get special priority. In my broker world, I get special priority. And I go wherever it's best for my clients. That's what I do. And so that's kind of where I started out. And then I worked in private money from the start of the mortgage crash. I had always dabbled in it before, but not deep. So I started working in private money hardcore at the start of the mortgage crash because it became another way to make money and find loans because conventional loans weren't going. So people were taking advantage of the market, buying property bottom. And if you remember back when that mortgage crash happened, people were ripping out their cabinets and leaving and taking them, selling them on, Craigslist. I mean, they were buying other homes and then letting these go to foreclosure. There was all the buying bells, what they called it. There was all these things happening. So a lot of investors were taking advantage of getting these properties at dirt cheap. And so I saw them doing that. And I was rubbing elbows with multimillionaires, not like 10, like hundreds of million. And so I saw that arena and I started rubbing elbows with them. Then they started asking me to underwrite for them. So in 2012, when we started our mortgage brokerage, in 2013, I went to my partner and I told him, like, I want to do private money. I want to do private money. I have all these resources. He was like, no, that's dirty money. He didn't want anything to do with it. He's like, it's dirty money. I'm like, no, you got to talk to the people I'm talking to. It's not dirty money. It can be good money. And it's a way for agents to be able to, or investors to be able to buy these houses and get in. And so what ended up happening is he changed his mind. He opened his eyes to a whole new world. He goes, it's not dirty money. I'm like, it can be. There's some people out there scamming and doing the wrong thing, but you got to do your homework. But there are some good deals out there. So we took our investors and we started lending private money. So we became basically the broker. So I had the investors and I brought them to my investors I had the lenders basically, brought them to my investors that needed to have loans that nobody else gave them a chance. They couldn't go to the Civics or the Corvettes or the things like that because they weren't experienced. And so we did a blend between traditional, conventional banking and hard money, private money. So it's less risk because I vet everybody out. I background check them. I do all these things. So my investors, thank God, have never had a default, ever. We've come close to people, we've threatened them, but they've always been able to pull out because we just work with them. And I have relationships with whoever, is doing the loans. I keep the relationships with them and I protect my investors like it's my mom's money. And the reason I say my mom's money is because I might take a little bit of risk with my money. I'm very conservative, actually, but I will not take a risk with my mom's money. And so I'm very, very on top of that. So I kept those relationships. And then what ended up happening is through that, we started lending to everybody and we had millions behind us to lend. And there's a place called Lending Home and they had kind of strict, so people weren't getting through. And if you didn't know how to put a package together to get a loan in there, you weren't getting to get it done. But I knew how to do it because I had the experience. So I would go in there and do these loans and get it through. And I started taking what they were doing and reinventing it and taking it to what we were doing, just better. Okay. Because we weren't so hard. And they were more commercialized where we were more hands-on, small group, help the person that wants to get started. So we dealt with people who are brand new and people that are experienced. You just got a better rate if you're experienced and you had higher loan to values versus someone who was inexperienced. We cut it back, higher rate, and we're going to have a lower loan to value. And then, so we started doing that. And we were heavy into that in 2014 and then kept doing it in 2020. I met someone that he had always been doing lending. And the person that was his main source, he only had one source. He had heard about me, and the person that was his main source, she passed away. So his money was gone. Nothing he could do. He had all these loans out there in 2020. This is before COVID. It was February. So before COVID hit. So I started dealing with him in 2020, and I said, let's partner up. Okay, I'll lend your money, but we're taking a piece of the rate. You're not going to get it all, and I'll bring you the lender. And so he got the bulk of it, but we got a piece of it, like a service release premium. I said, I'll do all the underwriting, but you got to do all the heavy lifting. You got to call them, you got to chase them, you got to do all that. Well, they happen to be lending in Michigan and Florida, which we were lending in Florida, hadn't lent in Michigan at all. We had lent in Ohio. So we're lending in quite a few different states, depending on their laws and if they were judicial or non-judicial. So we prefer to do non-judicial because we don't want to get caught up in that, because other states are very hard to foreclose on. Thankfully, I've never had to do that. But we did our research before we did that. But so in Michigan, I started seeing all these things that he was doing. And these guys were just laymen. They had no formal education. They were just hard workers, didn't have a lot of money. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, okay, they're making like 30 grand. For them, that's a lot. You can buy a house for 30 grand out there. Okay. I'm like, wow. Like, I'm seeing them do this. And then you can go one block over. It's a hodgepodge. And he started teaching me. And so through all that, I kept like picking his brain and getting information, sucking up as much as I could. And then what ended up happening is, like, he started bringing me into his folds, like, to more stuff, into other people. And so I started meeting his contractors, and I started meeting all those, and they loved me, but I was doing loans with them. So every time there's a problem, guess who has to call? So we had one partner was the bad guy. I'm the one that goes and solves the problem. So I go in and I'm the good cop. The other partner is the bad cop. Okay. So he's the one that always went in there, and they always butt heads with him. He's really hardcore. He's Chinese and just hardcore. He doesn't budge when it comes to money. And so, so they would have to deal with me to do the work programs. And, they threatened me like, oh, I'm just going to let it foreclose. I said, buddy, let it foreclose because, your default rate is 22%. I got investors that are in your backyard. They'll buy this all day long. They'll let you do all the work, and then we'll foreclose on it in a minute. Then they stop. And they knew, like, what I'm doing with. So then we went to, in November of 2020, some of my investors that were doing these loans, they're like, Joe, why aren't you doing this? And I always wanted to, but I was afraid. And so I said, I don't know. Why am I not doing this? The one blessing that COVID brought is that I was busy. I was working 7 days a week, 16 to 18-hour days. I was not having a life, but it brought a lot of money to me. And so I said, you know what? I have the money. I never had this kind of opportunity before, not since like prior to 2008, and I didn't really know enough about it then. Now I know a lot about it. And so those people that were giving the loans that are multi-millionaires that I protect their money said, we'll back you. You have no reason not to do it. And I'm like, went to my husband and I said, went to my partner, Brian, who develops the technology that helps us find the properties. And we fine-tuned it to what we're doing. It can go in every state. And so we have an ROI that we have to have, and we have what we call a TOI. It's called the takeout investor. So a TOI, we won't do anything. Our TOI is after everything, and it's if we need to sell or we want to diversify or anything, but we won't do anything below 16%. So that means the ROI is probably 22, 24, based on where we start. So we started developing this. He developed the software, and he tweaked the stuff that Joe uses for investors, and he tweaked it, and it's made for what we want. And we put in our parameters, and these properties are coming up just like that. And so we pretty much hand them to the agents. We have a templated contract, very much different. The one thing I can tell you about investing out of state, you need to be careful. Every state is very different. And I can tell you Michigan has huge opportunities, but there is so much different than California. It is nothing like California. And so you have to be very careful. You have to do your homework. I spent 6 months before I ever bought a property just doing my homework. Okay. And basically what you need to do is you need to get your boots on the ground. I started calling everybody every day. All this while I'm working 16, 18-hour days in COVID, so I can keep that money flowing in. Okay. I went to Michigan 3 times last year. I stayed 2 weeks each time. We planned to go for 6 weeks at one time this year, but my partner's father passed away. He got sick, and it just kind of threw everything off. Blessing in disguise, we ended up really rolling up our sleeves because the mortgage industry kind of slowed down. So I had time. So I started getting involved in all my rehab, and we learned so much that we didn't know. But every time we went to Michigan, we learned a ton of stuff. We met people. We drove around. We put on 1,000 miles a week just in the city of Detroit. And Detroit is big. It's bigger than Los Angeles. Okay, it's huge. Okay, and they don't have traffic. And so we put on 1,000. Rarely do they have traffic unless there's an accident or something. But they don't have traffic like Los Angeles. It's not like that.
So you
And
didn't go to auction then? You didn't make it?
We didn't make it to auction because he died the week of the auction. So they took him off life support, and he lived a couple of weeks. So we had to change everything. And it's just, it's all suddenly, he got sick. He got in a car accident. Then they got COVID while they're in the hospital, him and his mother. They're in their late 70s. He's the only child, and they're from Hawaii. So he was in Hawaii back and forth, so we just couldn't. And so we were going to go this month, but he has to go take care of her affairs in Hawaii. So, and she's not in the best of health. And so basically, you know, we said that probably was a good thing we didn't, because our auction properties, the ones that we bought from our property manager, who's a big auction person, but they've taken the longest to do. So we learned so much, we've taken them over ourselves now. Okay, so basically you learn to anticipate problems because you're going to have them. There's been scams. I can tell you, I trust my intuition always. I always have good intuition. And when I don't trust my intuition, you know, I've always been burned. And I always have visions about stuff. My sister always tells me, like, that's a gift. And I always used to tell her it's a curse, because I see things and they happen and I blame myself for the longest time. But I've learned to trust it now and follow up. And if people want to think I'm nuts, let them think I'm nuts. But 99% of the time, I'm right. And so I had an intuition about one of my properties. We're just getting ready to rent it. And the property manager had it and didn't fix it. And I told my boots on the ground, I told him, you know, go check Maple Ridge. Like, go check it. I think something's wrong. He's like, Joe, it's fine. I just was back there. I'm like, go check it. I think something's wrong. Right. So he went, he checked it, but he didn't go inside. Right. And so he drove by it. So everything was good. It was boarded up. And then that was on a Wednesday. On a Thursday, he went there to show it. Got there in the morning. He calls me. Okay. Calls me at 5 a.m. my time, because it's 8 o'clock in the morning. He's supposed to show that property to 2 people. And he's like, gets the keys out of the lockbox. He's like, my keys don't work. These aren't my locks. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I thought you were just there. Right? He's like, no, the keys don't work. These aren't my, this is not my keys. And I'm like, okay, like, can you get in the house? He goes, someone took all the boards down. They're in the back of the house, off the windows. Right? And I'm like, what? Okay. So I'm like, okay. He goes to the back of the house. The back door was unlocked. And he pushes it open. He can see someone has a TV in there, bags of clothes, all kinds of things. I'm like, oh, squatters, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, but we didn't put the furnace in yet, because we know that they'll steal them because it's cold there, right? So we've learned you put it in right when you know the tenant's going to be in, even if you haven't boarded up. So we didn't have it. So there was no furnace, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh. So we could see that it was probably a female and there was probably kids, right? Because it looked like there was some female stuff and kid stuff, but we didn't know if there was anybody in the house. And I was telling him, don't go in the house. I'm calling the police, right? Well, you know, I have to go through the regular routes because you can't call 911 because I'm in California. So it's going to go to California 911, not Detroit 911. So I'm trying to get to Detroit 911. And I talked to the police officers, and he's like, okay, there's nothing we could do. You know, we have new laws about squatters. And so you have to make sure that they haven't been staying there, because they're going to claim that they've lived there and it's hard to get them out. You have to evict them, even if they don't have a right to be in the house. And so, and make sure your guy has a copy of your deed, and you have to write him a letter saying that he has permission to be in the house, or we're going to arrest him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't have you arresting my workers, right? So basically what ended up happening, he left and he went down the street, because I told him, just go down the street, because this car kept driving by. And this girl was yelling, pull up, pull up, pull up. And I'm like, get out of there. Like, I don't need you shot. Like, I don't know what's going to go on, right? I don't know if there's someone's stuff, you're not moving the stuff, call the police. They told me if someone comes by, call the police. Well, they didn't stop at the house. So he went to Home Depot to get new locks, right? I lost contact with him. He didn't call me back, left his phone in the car for 2 hours, lost contact with him. I'm like, what the heck? Did something happen? So I'm like panic mode, calling everybody I know, trying to see if he's okay, go out to the house, right? And it turns out he went to Home Depot. There's only one cashier. He was in there for 2 hours just trying to get locks and left his phone in the car. So I'm like, okay, you about made me had a heart attack. So I finally get a hold of him. He's back at the house. And this girl comes up and she walks up and she goes, "Are you guys here to fix the thermostat?" He's like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I live here." And so I'm on the phone with him and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? So long story short, I told him, let me talk to her. And so find out she's a widow, 5 children. Her husband just died in May. She gave someone, they were advertising our house on Facebook and they had been opening up, taking the boards down and letting her in through the side door because they jacked it up and opened it and taking the boards down and boarding it back up every time. So they've been showing the house for over a month. So while we were there, another person came up. They go, "Is that house still for rent?" So she said, no, it's not, right? Because we already had 2 people that were going to take it. And then end up being that another lady. So we asked her, I said, who showed you the house? She goes, "It was a black guy." And this lady said it was a white guy. So find out that's a huge scam. And so they do it on Facebook. They do it all the time. And they took her money. They would only take cash. There's people who still pay cash. Long story short, they were charging the rent that we were charging. We vetted her out. We moved the other 2 people to other houses. I waited a week because I told her, "You can't stay in the house because I don't want to evict her." I said, "You got to find a place to stay." So she's staying with friends. "But where are you going to stay with 5 kids? They're in school." And I said, "But I'll try to get you in." So we're like what we call a second chance landlord. So basically what happened, she just moved in yesterday. She has heat, she has everything, and we put her in. She wasn't our candidate. She didn't apply. But we wanted to help her out because she's a widow, and she's got kids. So it's like, I'm not going to put her on the street. So those are the scams that we run into. Never have what I thought that would happen. So you got to be super careful, do your homework, get your boots on the ground. I'm constantly calling for people. Everybody I talk to, I ask them, "Do you know roofers? Do you know HVAC people? Do you know painters?" I got to keep my list full.
Who are you asking?
Everybody that does anything for me, I ask them. So I ask my investors that are out there that I know deal out there. I ask them, "Give me your contractors." I have one guy, he's from Detroit. He referred me 3 contractors. And they're all 3 pastors. So he referred me 3 contractors. But he flips in Chicago. But he comes back, and every time he comes back, "Joe, you need somebody?" I'm like, "I'll bless someone with work, but they got to be good. You got to tell me who they are. They got to want to work," because the problem they're having over there, COVID made a lot of people not want to work. They want to sit on their butt and not work. So what we did, I forgot what they call it, but it's like along the lines of dumpster diving, but it's dumpster looking for dumpsters. So while we were out there, we would drive the streets of our neighborhoods that we buy in. We're in 4 cities, and they're all spread out, but Detroit primarily. We would drive the streets and we would see people that are working during the middle of COVID. And we'd look at their work, we'd get their cards, because if they're working during the middle of COVID, but those are the people that are backed up with work because everybody wants them. So you constantly got to get people. So my property manager, they walk away from properties like, "We don't have anybody." And I'm like, you know what? I started calling it. I get people just on the phone. I call them up. I start vetting them out. We have a certain standard that we go with. They have to go in and take before pictures and a video, give us the quote. And we'll give them half up front. Okay. But we background check all of them before anything is done. We're not going to pay the second half until we've talked to the tenant, if there's a tenant in there, or we've had someone of my people go and inspect the work. So that's what we've learned, because what was happening, our property manager was saying, "Oh, all this work is done." I come and find out none of it's done. But guess what? People got paid, but they never checked them. And then I called tenants that we have, I build tenant relationships. I call as an asset manager. I don't tell them I'm an owner because I am an asset manager. I'm a part owner, but these tenants love me. And I found out that the key thing is building that relationship, because their number one complaint is property manager does not hear me. We stop paying because they won't fix anything, and they let things just sit there. And then they tell us they're fixed and they're not. So that's the biggest complaint. We've had some that we were up in court on that we didn't even know we were in court because because the people were trying to get SARA funds, which is government relief during COVID, to pay their rent. And you have to fix the property if they have a complaint before they're going to give you the money. If not, they're going to take the money out of the SARA funds that for all the rent that they're paying us back, and they're going to give it to them to fix the property. Do you think they're going to fix my property?
Still going on?
They stopped in Michigan in May. But if you were already in the system, you can still apply again. You can apply 3 times, up to 15 months total. So you can't be brand new to it. Okay, so we've got people on their second round now. They got their first round, and it's very slow over there. But the thing is that what they will do, we learned a hard lesson. People will lie and say, I need this, this, and this, and this repaired. Nobody ever checked it, didn't get repaired. Guess what? They took it out of our SARA funds and gave it to the tenant. You think the tenant's going to fix the property? No, they took off with the money and they still aren't paying. So we got to fix it anyway. But most of those that are in court, I've been able to build a relationship with. And that's the key thing. I have boots on the ground that go in there. They're my people that tell me the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's the main thing that I say is just be careful, do your homework.
I have some questions. So you've been in it for a long time, but you just recently started pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
As far as the investment side.
March of last year.
Right. Was that truly, like, when you think back at it, was it truly like a money thing for you? Because you've always been around money, right? And I'm looking at your story, like there's always been money around, but you necessarily didn't ask for it beforehand. So I'm just, I want to process, like, why is it now and why didn't it happen?
Great question. So money's not a motivator for me. Okay. I have to love what I do. Okay. If I made $1 million and hated what I do, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't. I'd rather do something that I love. So I was I did, teaching they don't pay really well. I did it for a long time, and that's why I have a love for kids still. But the reason I got into it is because I'm nearing retirement age. Okay. As a real estate agent, as a loan officer, we're as good as our last deal. I wanted security with residual income. I do have a SEP IRA. That's not going to take care of me. It's not going to put the money that I'm used to making. Like, I'm used to making big money. I save money. I don't live like my partner too. He's very wealthy, but you wouldn't know it to look at him. He lives within his means because he invests. And he used to do a security. And that's why I really, I've been with him since 2011. I really wanted to pick his brain because he was wealthy already. And even during all this, he owns 2 real estate companies. Even during all this, he's not a lack for money. And he's 9 years younger than me. So mine was really for security. I want residual income. So I don't flip. We do flip if it's like a quick deal and we can make some big money, but it's not going to be to make 30,000. It's going to make 100 grand or, something like that. And those opportunities are there. So it is there to flip if you've got your right boots on the ground, but you got to have your good people there that are going to work for you because it's hard being out of state. We're thousands of miles away and I'm doing better than my property manager's doing. That's right there in the backyard, so you got to have good people that you trust and you got to check them. I check them constantly. I call them out and they know it. And they don't know who I have on the ground that's there. I make friends and these people are loyal to me. They're very loyal to me. And they tell me this straight up. They'll drive by my houses every day if I ask them to. And they're not getting a dime for it. It's just I give them business when it's available to them. I've got painters that when they're waiting, I make sure they're always first in line. They give me good prices. So I keep my boots on the ground close to me. A lot of these people came from my property manager and they were unhappy with her. So basically what this year has done for me, in April, the mortgage market slowed down. I'm still doing loans. I'm still doing good by all means compared to what everybody else is doing, but it's definitely not what it was in 2021 and early 22. I mean, rates are in the 6s, high 6s. We're tapping in the 7s. We just had a little bit of a break this week. So we've had every day they went down this week, but I mean, I was selling loans in the low 2s, sometimes in the 1s. I closed loans in the 1s. Who's going to refinance that? Nobody. And I wouldn't let them. So my market slowed down. I went from doing 15 to 20 loans a month to doing 3, and then it went to, okay, here's a month with nothing because everybody's not qualifying. So I rolled my sleeves up and I said, you know what? The best thing I can do is get down and get dirty and get in with my properties. And so we had already planned to be there. So I wanted to already be building those relationships. So I call people constantly all the time. We huddle every morning. I huddle with my people. I huddle with my property manager. We Zoom all the time. We're on Zoom. I Zoom with my accountants. I hired an accountant. We're an accountant attorney all in Michigan. We opened up an LLC in Michigan. And I can tell you, like, everybody, when they first talk about Michigan, they talk about Detroit. Everybody's like, ooh, I was the same way. I was like, and they kept telling me, no, Joe, it's not like that. I can tell you, I feel safer in downtown Detroit than I do in LA. It's much nicer. It's beautiful. And I'm a female walking around, a white woman walking around. Everybody embraced me. There's every walk of life there. The police embraced me. I mean, they all hugged me at every one of our properties. I mean, I had gangbangers embracing me. Okay. And I'm going in there into houses. Our gangbangers are sitting at our houses wanting, trying to squat. And I'm wearing jeans, Vans, old school tennis shoes, and a leather jacket. And it's 28, 29 degrees. So I'm freezing because I didn't know how cold it was. Okay. Nobody wears Vans, old school tennis shoes. Okay. I wear Vans all the time. And they're looking at me like, okay, she's not from here. Okay. They thought I was a cop. They thought I was the feds. Okay. But by the end of the day, they're embracing me. And they ended up watching our properties for us. But it just comes, it's the relationship. I've been around everything in my life. My dad took out people into his house, people that have been on drugs, whatever. He was always giving them a second chance. And so that doesn't scare me. They're human, just like us. People make mistakes. And we've been able to give people second chances at work. And they've been great. We vet them out. They've been great just because we gave them a second chance, and they're loyal to us. They're loyal. We have pastors that are working with us to help people get work. And we're training them to be able to work on our houses. So they'll be our people, but also we're training them how to do a business. And so my model was to create something that I have a residual income, but it also was to be a good steward of what's been given to me and to give back. And so I am in ministry. My partner's in ministry, and we're at Saddleback. But in all the ministry we've done, we have not been able to reach the amount of people we've reached in this last year. Like, we have reached so many people. It is a ministry for us. And God definitely has his hand on it because he's protected us through so many things and put people in our path that we never would have met because we're here. And so we didn't meet them while we were over there. We met some really great people while we were over there. But we met those people over the phone by referrals, by me just calling and say, who do you know who? I mean, that was what was it, Brian Tracy back in the days? It was always, who do you know who? That was a big thing in the mortgage. Is who do you know who that needs to sell their house? Who do you know who? So I'm always like, who do you know who that works on furnaces? Who do you know who? Because furnaces and basements and flooding is a big thing out there. They have basements. What do we do out here? We don't have basements. We're not used to pipes freezing because it gets to below zero. They have all that. And these are things I had to learn. So you have to learn about where you're buying. And I learned those from the people that do the work.
Joe, how many properties did you acquire the very first time when you started purchasing?
Great question. So the very first from March, I got my first property at the beginning of March. We closed like 3 at the beginning of March. From March to July, I got 31 properties. Okay. Some of those were duplexes, some of them were houses, and they were a lot cheaper then. Rent was a lot cheaper. But I can tell you, I just brought some of my numbers today. And this is to show you how big it can go. Okay. So we ended up pumping the brakes because we got so many properties and we needed work to do. So we pumped the brakes towards the end of the year because it was winter and we didn't know how to do a Detroit winter. So we were up there in November. So we were trying to figure it out. Like, how do you winterize? How do you do this? So in 2021, my gross revenue was $1,009, and that was with vacant properties. Okay. And we ended up with 38 doors. Okay. Because some of those were duplexes. So
Was that your first year?
first 5 months in the business. So I started March of 2021. All of those are buy and hold. Okay. So we've changed our model. Before we were buying mainly C-class properties. Okay. So they're a little bit lower income.
Yeah.
Our model this year, because we pumped the brakes and we started, working on all the rehabs and getting those down, because we bought some properties at auction. We bought 5 properties at auction. And that was the biggest, actually would have been the biggest moneymaker. But we went with a property manager that didn't do the job. We bought them from her. She was supposed to fix them. We left our money with her. First big mistake. So learn from my mistakes. Don't leave money with any property. We trusted her. She's a Christian. I loved her. I mean, she's like a sister to me. But she's going through something in her life where she's kind of let everything fall apart, and she's walked away, and we're strategizing to be able to move. But basically what what ended up happening is those properties sat vacant for a year. And so in April, I started being the head of rehab. Okay. That's not my forte. I'm a numbers gal, but I'm good at crunching those numbers for how much they spend and catching them when they're lying, catching them when they're double billing me. Like I have a really good attention to details. So my partner's like, you're the best at that. He started doing the rentals. So we just started purchasing properties this year, coming like in May, June, because I said, I'm full-time on this and I'll do my loans as they come in. So that's going to be my part-time job. This is going to be my full-time job. Doing all the rental applications. So we decided that we're probably going to be vertically integrated and we're just going to open up our own property management and manage it ourselves because we're doing 100 times better. Yeah.
Nice.
We're doing way better than theirs. We're turning our properties in 2 weeks and getting them rented for way higher than they were. And they're low. So the one thing that has saved us is that the values have all went up and the rents have went up astronomically. What was $700 last year was $1,000 to $1,100 this year. And we're getting it all day long. Everybody told us we won't get it.
You're
We have
doing
no problem.
Section 8 as well?
We do Section 8 MISTA, which is Michigan Housing, Detroit Housing Authority. So they will give you HUD rents. So they will give you HUD rents. So we get it, but you have to be inspected. So we don't mind that. But what we've learned now, it's better to get a property without people in it. Because a lot of times, so we did estoppel certificates to try to protect us. They didn't know what the heck that was. Okay. California, we always get them. But you know what they were doing? People weren't paying. So they're saying, hey, I'll let you out of this debt. Just sign it's up to date. And this is what you're paying. So they're frauding us, right? We get them to sign it. They push us back tooth and nail. So we learned. So a lot of our properties had people in it. The rents were super low. And then they just stopped paying because the previous landlords were slumlords. And, you know, they didn't help them. So we had to go in and start fixing them. So that's what we've been doing all this year is fixing them, building the relationship with tenants, and raising our rents. And what I do, my tenants thank me at the end of the day. Like I just did one. They had not fixed her property and we just bought it. And we bought it in November. She stopped paying in December. It was, the property manager said, she's a liar. She's litigious. Every time I go to court for Sarah, she's lying. I said, I'm going to call her, right? Because I saw this email that they sent that they didn't cover up. And it said, if you don't do this repair work, the owners could go to jail. I'm like, and she's like, it doesn't say that. I go, yes, it does. You already sent it to me. I see. I'm not going to jail for nobody. I said, what's going on? And she's like, no, you're not going to go to jail. And I'm like, why hasn't this stuff been done? So I call the tenant and I find out what's really going on is that she's been fighting this for years with the previous person. She hasn't had heat. She hasn't had electricity that works right. She has cords all over the house. So she's telling me all this stuff. And so I'm like, I believe her. I think I believe this lady. And so what ends up happening, so I bring my guys out there, my team. The other team said they fixed everything. And like, we're trying to get our Sarah money, right? Because she hasn't paid for over a year. So what ended up happening, and her rents were low. They were at $650, and rents right now there should be about $1,000. She's in a duplex. So the one downstairs, she was at $750. So, and she rented it, you know, like when we right mid last year. Okay. So this lady upstairs, when I called her, she had just been in a car accident. She was screaming in pain, like, and my brother had just had heart surgery and he had been in a lot of pain because he got an infection, all these things happened. And it was the same thing. Like I was unnerved. I was sitting there and I'm like, do you need me to call you back? So I ended up praying over her. I told her, would you mind if I pray over you? Because I could hear the pain that was in there. I said, I'm going to call you back. Right. And just that little attention that I gave her changed the whole gamut of everything. So when I sent my people in there, they got mad. They walked off the job because they're electricians that came in with them. They're like, if this is the way you do things, we can't work for you. They were so upset. Okay. And this is a house I can go to jail for. Okay. And I'm like, no, like we never knew that this house was like that. We just bought it, you know, and she wasn't paying and she quit paying. And she said, the only reason I quit paying is because nobody listens to me. Nobody will help me. And we bought it. It was a listing from our property manager. So we thought, oh, it's good because she's had them. She's had them. So we're good. Right. So she stopped paying right after we got the house because she saw it was a new owner and she's like, I'm going to stop paying. I'm going to sock it to them. So what ended up happening is they went in there. It was a death trap. Like we, by the grace of God, didn't go to jail. It was a death trap. And I'm like, oh God, thank God you protect us from that. Okay. But it was all hidden because it was in the walls. And when the electricians, he got scared because he was in a bedroom and trying to touch a plug and look at a plug to see what was going on, where it was shorting out, and a light in another room was going on. And he's like, is there ghosts in this house? He was like getting freaked out. Like, and the lady was sick. So she had all these things, and her and her daughter had to have all these machines plugged in. So there was cords going everywhere, like total fire hazard. Every single room, the lights in the kitchen didn't work, bathrooms, they had lamps plugged in. And she'd been living like this for 7-8 months. Okay, so nobody fixed it. Well, what ended up happening, I got my people out there right away. And she calls me now to this day. And I told her, her name's Sheila. I said, Sheila, I got to raise your rents. I'm not going to raise you to market rents, but I showed her, this is what rents are. I know you can't afford that. Okay. But I'm going to have to raise them. And I know that you want to pay. So her Sarah funds aren't even in yet. And she's paying. She's paying me because we took care of everything. She loves me. The downstairs unit just vacated. We're moving her aunt in there who's been taking care of her. She's on Detroit Housing Authority. So we're moving there and there. But she called me the other day because, and I started crying because she said, so what we do does make a difference. And that's when I realized, okay, this is the right thing. I'm doing the right thing here. Because I question myself sometimes, this is hard, God. Like, am I supposed to be doing this? And she called me the other day and she said, she calls me Miss Jo. She's only a couple years younger than me. And she said, I just want to tell you that I love you. You saved my life. And I'm like, Sheila, oh my gosh. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just talked to you and I just prayed for you. She goes, yeah, you're right. But I've never had a landlord. She knew that I was an owner somehow. She said, I never had a landlord pray over me. And she said, you took care of everything. Like you said, you're going to get it done. You got it done. And then what I found out is this is why she said I saved her life. Her aunt came in. So this lady got in this major car accident, got really hurt. It was like 6 weeks in recovery. On the way to the doctor, went like 3 weeks out after that while we're working on the house. Her car caught on fire and they had to cut the car to get her out. So this lady has been like, God has spared her life for some reason. Okay. Because she was hurt really bad in this car accident. Okay. And God spared her life. And then what happened is, I didn't know this. She's been having headaches really bad. And so they took her in the hospital and she had to do a brain surgery. And she called me. She was on her way home from the hospital. She'd been in the hospital for a week. She called me last week. And that's when she told me, she goes, I told my aunt who she brought in that I have a friend, her name is Miss Jo. And she's been praying for me because she wasn't going to do the surgery because they have to remove fluid off her brain and she was afraid of dying. She said, because she prayed over me and I know she's praying over me constantly, I did the surgery. She said, I only did the surgery for you. And that's what saved my life because they said if I would have let it go, I would have died because I didn't want to do it. I was afraid. So that just tells you what relationships do. And you know what? I raised her rent to $850. You know, we're still $150 low, but I'm $200 higher. And she thanked me and she's paying and we're still waiting for Sarah because I showed her, this is what rents are. We're not going to kick you out. She's like, I love you. You raised my rents and I love you. But that's because the way I presented it, I showed her, this is what it is. This is what it is. So
from here on out, are you still on hold because of the winter or
no. So this is what we've done. So right now we're at 48 doors. I just signed one this morning. That's going to be 49 doors tomorrow. I was signing loan docs this morning and I had 2 refis I had to do. I write up all our own loan docs. So I have to do everything. So I was writing up the loan docs. We do piggybacks, everything for my private money because my investors trust me. So I do the underwriting, I do everything. I'm loaning to myself and I write up the loan docs, right? So we just refied a couple of our, so our model is this. Right now, our model is this. We buy C-class or C properties in B-class neighborhoods. And we try to get them without tenants because we don't want to evict people. It's just like me and my partner, that's just not in our DNA. We're just not good at that. We'll let them sit there on low rents. We're just not good at that. And we know where our shortcomings are. But what we do is the prices are too low for conventional lending. So you have to do a blanket loan. So we recapitalize. And what's funny is that when we recapitalize these, we're maybe putting 4 properties on one loan. Okay. So we have to have each property be worth at least 62.5 to make it at an 80% loan to value for each property, and we blanket them together. So we have to have at least 4 to get a loan. Some of them require a $500,000 loan. Some require $1 million. Right now we have one that's we're gonna redo, like it's gonna be $1 million. We're gonna be redoing. We're pulling cash out, and we're gonna pay off our loans, which we have a ton of equity on like 20 properties, and we're getting cash out of all of those. And that's going to be used for all the rehab.
Yeah.
And the rates are kind of comparable to what conventional is right now since they went up.
Yeah.
We got one loan at 5.99 before the rates really went up to the 6s. Okay, and that's on commercial. Okay.
This is residual income.
Yeah, it's no recourse. So my numbers here don't even reflect all this. So we have right now a commitment to redo 20 of our properties on one blanket loan. Lady sold her house. She wants residual income. So she's giving us a 3-year loan at 8%. And we're getting a lot of cash out. So like right now, my doors are at 48. So what my revenue right now is about $206,000 a year with like just stayed right here. Okay. I just put 5 into escrow yesterday. So we just started saying, no, we're ramping up. We're going to deal with that. We're not going to worry about the auctions. He just got back from Hawaii. So we stopped everything, halted everything in September. October, we started getting our game plan, and we started offering again. So I highly doubt we're going to stay at 48 properties. But if I turn it into 96 doors for 2023, my revenue based on today's rates, okay, and what we have, and some of those aren't at high. We haven't raised all of them yet. We haven't had a chance to raise all of them yet because we're fixing them. My revenue will be about $432,000 next year if I double that and I put it up to 96 doors. I could do that. If we were looking to buy 50 properties at auction. We had $2 million that we could have brought to the table. That's how many investors want to back us. And so I don't really have to come in with those at the auction. I have to come in with cash up front, but I have people that will cover me.
Right.
And then what they do is we refi it as soon as we get them out of auction. We have like a 30-day, we have to wait. They have a 30-day redemption period. Most of those, the redemption, they're out already. So once we know that they're out, we don't have to wait the 30 days. But if someone's in there, we got to wait the 30 days. And so, but that was probably our biggest gain, was the biggest moneymaker where we got the biggest equity was auctions. And my partner wrote software for the auctions, like he does. And like we can sit there and know which property we want in minutes. We just got to vet out everything.
And get the highest return on investment.
Yeah. Based on our numbers that we have to have. And so like we have a system. So that's the main thing. You got to have systems in place. And the reason I say that is that you got to have systems in place. So say you have someone that you train and they're really great. They leave you. Where does your business go? You know, you have to have systems in place that you can kind of what we call dummy down, that somebody else could step right in and I could show them, hey, this is what you do. And that's what we've done with our real estate agents. Like we have it templated. So the first real estate agent we got, he never closed a deal in his life. He closed 32 deals with us. We don't use him anymore because we found out that he doesn't get out of the car, didn't know the neighborhoods, and he's in predominantly Black neighborhoods that he was buying in. So we have another agent that's brand new, and he's closed about 10 with us right now. He knows the neighborhood without a GPS. He can tell you, and Detroit's big. He doesn't use the we're looking at him going, riding in the car, we're like, don't you need the GPS? No, I know where that street is. Driving all around, but he's raised in the hood. Guess what? He gets out. He knows the bad areas. He tells us. We got caught with 2 bad ones.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it was because he didn't get out. And when we drove up there and we saw it, we had just closed. We're like, oh my God. Like, I wasn't that scared, but my partner was scared. And my partner, he looks like Elon Musk, but he's like a big Arnold Schwarzenegger version of Elon Musk. He bodybuilds. He's big. And I'm like, you're scared? I'm not scared, but I won't be out here at night, you know. But I wasn't scared because I've been around that. So I wasn't scared. But he was scared. And turned out the properties are okay. We met all the neighbors. Like I go meet the neighbors. And I have the neighbors watch our houses while they're sitting there. So I have systems in place for all my people so that if I have to replace them, I can. Yeah. And that's the best thing you can do for yourself, is start a system that you change it as you grow. And so every time we have a problem, we add it onto our checklist for our real estate agent. They have to check all these things off before we're gonna sign the contract on that property.
Does anybody have questions? I want to make sure we have room for questions. Any specific questions that you guys want to ask in regards to what you're doing? So you look really passionate about what you're doing right now. Has this always been you, or has this been the new you? Because I don't know if it's your timeline that you were initially mentioned, that you're really excited about what you're doing and where you're at in your life. Is that what triggered you now, or have you always been like this in regards to?
I've always been passionate about investing. I've just been scared. Okay. I did not know that it would be this. I didn't know that God was going to use it this way. The reason I'm very passionate about it now, because I see that I can be a good steward of my money and what I've done by helping others learn, by giving jobs to people, by giving people a second chance to get in a home that maybe wouldn't have been able to get in because maybe they're not so great on paper and they had something happen 7 years ago. Everybody deserves a second chance. And so we do things like getting co-signers on there. They'll get grandma to sign or whatever, but they need help and they're human beings. And unfortunately what happens and this is what I'm going to tell you going into other states. When they see people from California, they just automatically think you're all rich and they're going to charge you through that. So I got a Michigan number. I got a Google Voice number. I do all my texts on there and the pictures they send me come right on that, go straight to my email. Okay. I do not call on my California number. I only call my people on my California number because I didn't have a Michigan number forever. But I noticed that. And so they automatically think we met neighbors when we were trying to get the houses rehabbed and we're talking to them and they watch our houses and we became great friends with them. But they all said, you guys aren't like the other people that come from out of state. They come in, they don't fix the properties. They don't get to know anybody and they just rent it out and they let it be basically a really bad house. But it's not anything fit for somebody to live in. But you know what they do is they say, okay, I'll charge you less rent just to get in. They've never seen the property, don't care, don't come, don't fix it. So people will live in those kind of houses. But to me, I don't care what income class you're in. Everybody deserves a decent place to live. It does not matter. And if I wouldn't live in it, then my people aren't going to live in it. And that's what I tell my property managers. And that's just my passion because I got to do the right thing over and above. God's not going to bless the work of my hands and to give me to keep doing this if I'm doing those kind of things. And he has opened up miraculous doors, like the city's coming to us now and saying, we have properties that we will lend you the money on. We have so much available. So we're exploring that now that are taken back. The land bank owns them. They'll give you for $1,000, but we want you to fix them and we'll lend on them because we need housing. There's so much need for housing there. Like to get on Section 8, 10-year waiting list in Detroit. So if you screw up your voucher, you're not getting back on because there's so much stepping right in. So the one good thing about Section 8 is they inspect it. Now, if you're a slumlord, not going to happen. You're not going to get approved for Section 8. But we have the people that know what Section 8 requires. And, some of our properties that we bought were already Section 8. So, but now we're buying without the renters being in there. If they have Section 8, we will buy them because we know that they're already on there. And we know that we can raise up the rent as soon as we do repairs. If the rent is under market, all we have to do is the repairs and Section 8 will raise it up to whatever the HUD rent rate is. So we go right to that website. We look at what HUD says and HUD's up there. There's no more days of $700 rents. And these people can't afford to buy these homes. So they're forced to rent because to buy the homes, it costs $40,000 to $50,000 now. We were getting for 20 to 30. The loans I just signed today, the notary, she says, I do Michigan loans all day long and I've never seen anybody get them for as cheap as you guys are getting them. She's like, I've never seen this. Like, they're never like this. And I'm like, because it's our system. It finds them. We're not doing the work. It's going, boop, boop, boop. I'm sitting there just going, okay, there's 100 I can start going through. I pick the highest ones and start vetting them out. I look at them. I go online. I start picking up values. I go look at, I have, because of being in the mortgage business, I have different systems that my appraisers let me use that go nationwide. And I'll start vetting it out. I go on the MLS and vet it out to try to find out what it's worth. Our real estate agent over there lets us get into the MLS and use it when we can't find comps or whatever. But we vet it out and we have a system to grade it. So we start out before we go in. So it's way different than California. This is the good thing about Michigan. They do what's called bifurcated title. Okay, so you can have your own title company. So we've learned to write ours up. So everybody's mostly going cash. We write it up as a cash offer. But we have an addendum in there that states that we have the right to choose private money financing. So we don't have to get a new addendum signed if we can go cash or we can go to private money financing. So it doesn't take it back to the table to be done. So we also put in there that we're going to use our title people, Fidelity Title. And I stick with the same people because they know my system. I've already trained them because what we do is different. They've never seen anybody like that. I've met all the branch managers, the operations officers. I go spend time with them. And they're getting, they got 38 deals from us last year. Actually, they got more because we did some refis. That's not even counting the refis. And they've been getting refis all this year because we've been refining all our properties. And we just put 5 into escrow and we have 3 this morning, that we're doing. So they're getting good business from us. And so they take care of me. But whenever I try to do title with the seller's title, I'm starting all over again, trying to explain it to them, and they don't have a clue. And it's never going to be the same people. So I don't use their title. I use my own. Our security deposit is held with my title. And we don't open escrow until we've done our inspection. We only put $1,000 in escrow, and we don't do it until our inspections are done. And it opens and we close 14 days from when we open escrow. Okay. So we already have inspected. I've sent in contractors to go in and vet out. This is what I think it's going to cost. Of course, you don't know everything. So we put a reserve there, for either plumbing issues. But if it hasn't been vacant long, we usually don't have too many problems. If it's been vacant a long time, there could be problems that we can't see because the water's usually off. Everything's off. So
Now, you also mentioned about going to like 90 doors or 100 doors.
Yeah.
Are you, now that you have that many doors, you talked about a management company, are you going to go ahead and like focus on like larger or apartment complexes?
yes, there's huge opportunities over there for that. Huge.
Secondary to management.
We've always wanted to do that. Okay. This is the thing. And you can get them for cheap. Okay. They must have been in their day. It's like Old Town Los Angeles, like a lot of brick buildings, and they have a lot of mosaics on them. They're beautiful. In their day, they must have been just beautiful. I mean, and so, but they're like levels, like you have 4 levels up. And so the thing is with those is that you can't have anybody occupy until all the units are done. And at the time that we had the opportunity to go in there, we've had some huge opportunities. We didn't have enough rehab people to do that. Okay. But you can, our other thing is we're looking at taking out whole blocks. The city's asking us to take out whole blocks that need work. Because what they do is they tag them to tear down. So they would rather have us fix them if we want them, sell them to us for a cheap price. And that's what they're talking to me about now. That's not me. That's just me talking to people, and they see what we're doing. They're like, you guys are different. I talk to inspectors that come out and inspect our stuff, and they're really hard on California people. They don't like them. They tell you straight up, we don't like you. But I win them over. I call them. I win them over. I have to basically record every one of my calls when I call, because I'm training other people how to do that for me. So I'm trying to get other people to do that so I don't have to be doing that. I want to push hard. Probably he can retire anytime now. And I told him, give me another year and a half to 2 years. He works for Boeing, and so he's got a pension, but I don't. I got to work. I will never quit doing loans. I want to just maybe do 1 or 2 a month. Not because I have to do it to eat. I want to do it because I want to help people or help a friend or stay in the business, keep active, keep my brain active. But I love lending. I love crunching numbers. I love getting loans that nobody else can get. That's what makes me feel good. I love real estate, but I don't love driving around. I'm the negotiator. I'm a great negotiator. And so like a lot of my agents I work with are like, go Joe, go in there and work your magic. And I'll negotiate them to accept our deal over 10 other deals. And ours is not always the best. But they're like, you're the only lender that calls. That's my secret weapon. I always tell people, don't tell anybody. But I call. I tell them, look, I got 40 years in the business. I'm an owner, and I work in the trenches. I don't manage. I get down and work with my loan officers. And I help them. And I came from hard money. And my specialty is making things into A paper to the best loans you can get. And I tell them, this is what I'm going to do. And once they hear from a lender, they know that I can do it. I'm capable. No other lender's calling. Everybody else is just a number on paper. And I ask them, what's it going to take for you to accept our deal? And it's usually pretty easy. And I win deals out all the time. Sometimes I'm against 60 offers and I win it all the time, and we're not the best offer.
I want to go back to something you said.
Yeah.
So he can retire anytime. What does retirement look like for you? considering that you just started investing a year and a half ago, roughly.
So I told him, give me 2 years and I will slow down. I'm never going to retire.
But yeah, so relatively speaking,
But she
Yeah.
has her
But
income.
that's what I'm referring to. That's what I'm referring to.
I
There's a
want to
difference.
replace my income.
Correct.
And so my goal used to be, and this was when the rents were much lower. So my income last year, and we had some vacancies, was our income was $7,000, my part. Okay, split it. So it was $14,000, split it with my other partner. It's $14,000. So $7,000 would have been mine. Okay. And that's just off those first properties, which a lot of them were vacant. So we weren't all rent. So what I was saying, oh, I want double that. I want 14,000. Well, rents went up, it's easy. But I'm like, I could live off of 14,000 really easy. I'm used to making that kind of money easily, but I take it and I reinvest. I don't spend it. So I try to take my money to reinvest. That's what I always do. Until I need it, I'm not going to stop. But what I want to do, we've decided now that, so what we do is we've had a lot of elderly people that they have money sitting in the bank. They sold their house and they don't make a lot of money, and their Social Security is not going to cut it, and they have no way to make money. And we give them an opportunity to be the bank. And I've got one that's invested $600,000 with us. He's in his 80s. He was barely making it, but he had money in the bank, so he had to keep pulling off his money. Well, he's making 12% every month, and he's paid 2 days before the end of the month automatically. Private money, it's non-recourse. We personally guarantee our loans. How many people in private money that personally guarantee your loans? That's how much I believe in it. Because they can come after me for my house here. They can come after my partner for his house. They can come after every property I own when you personally guarantee it. So it holds a lot of weight. Before I'd ever let a property go in default, I'd sell it or, I'd refinance it. But our debt to income ratio right now on our properties, only 22% of our income is being used. 78% is left over. So we're using that for rehab. So I don't have to bring it out of my pocket. So there's no way I'm going to let it go into default because we have such high returns. That's the thing. So just look at this. So if I stop in 2023 and I have, and this is based on now, and we went conservative and I have 96 doors. 2024, 432,000 is my projected income. And this is conservative. It's conservative. With 96 doors, our goal is to get to 144 in 2024. My income would go to 942. Without adding another door, my income would go to 1.36 million. I did 31 in 5 months. Could I do 144? And I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I'm going to vet it out. I'm going to figure it out. And when we came to the problem, we tackled it. And, my partner has 32 years experience and he's ran real estate securities where you have to be rich to invest. If you're not rich and you don't have $1 million, guess what? You can't invest. These people, we have people right now investing with us with 30,000 and they're young people. We have a real estate agent that's 25 years old. He just started in real estate last year and he's doing phenomenal. I trained him in lending and I noticed that wasn't his forte because he's like a mini of my partner. He's great at technology. So we put him in our technology and helps with that, but he was better at real estate. And I'm like, Josh, you got to go into real estate. He put $100,000 in last year and he gets a payment every single month for 3 properties. And he's like 26. Yeah. So that's what I'm telling you. He knew nothing, but he trusted us. And so, because we're professionally managing it and we've already been through it. So we're sheltering the lender. We're sheltering, we make sure that we take care of them. So having money to go buy is not our problem. I got $4 million right now. People are trying to get me to place. I had a guy offer me $125 million. I'm like, no, I don't want to work that hard. I'll never work that hard. But he's very shrewd, super shrewd investor. And he will kick his tenants out. He'll raise the rent. He doesn't. I can't work like that. I just don't. I'd rather raise the rent step by step and do a workout plan. I'm not money driven, but I do need an income to live. And this is the best way that I can see that I can slow down and be able to travel, be with him when he does it. I have grandkids that I want to travel with. I see them all the time, but I can still be gainfully employed the way I want to do it. Because I have a money coming in, whether I'm sitting in Tahiti on the beach, or my bucket list is Italy. I could be sitting in Italy and see my properties going. I don't have to be there because I can pick up the phone from anywhere in the world. So I never thought I could do this. Like, who would look at me and think, oh, she did this? I'm just a simple person. I just have high aspirations, and I know I try. I used to be very shy. I'm super conservative. That's why they have me underwrite, because one of our partners, he's not conservative at all. My partner in the middle, Brian, he has great ideas, and he's a little bit conservative, but he has ways he'll come to me and go, Joe, what if we did this? Or what if we did that? And I'm like, well, that makes sense. I'll go with that. So he brings me down from being super conservative. So we have the perfect blend, because I'm the one that's like, nope, this could happen. This could happen. Nope, I won't approve this. Like, I'm the hammer. I'm the one that decides whether we're going to do the loan or not. And they all have to come to me. I'm the one that looks at the money and the numbers, because I have a great memory for detail. So I can pull up stuff out of my head. And he's like, I'll be like, no, remember that was our Marlowe property. This is what happened. Or this is this property. We had to do this. And he's like, I don't know how you keep this all in your head, but you got to jot it all down. So I jot it all down now through Basecamp. We have a system called Basecamp, so that he can go back in if there's a problem. He said, oh, this is everything that's happened with that property. But I had to get used to doing that, because I'm used to keeping things in my head. Guess what? If something happens to me, it's all gone. So that's why you got a system.
Perfect. I want to leave enough time for everybody to network. Does
Yep.
anybody else have any questions or want to ask any questions? Perfect.
Has anybody invested out of state yet? Or you're all just getting ready to do it? So if you want to do it, anybody can. But what I would tell you to do is get with people that are already doing it, that you aspire to be like, that you want. Like with me, it has to be people that line up with my morals and my ethics of the way I want to do things. And that's the same way with loans. Like, I do reverse mortgages too, but I won't do a reverse that somebody wants to do. Like, I have to do it with my fees. I won't do those 30,000 reverse mortgages. So if I'm, working with somebody, like say I have to do an out of state, I'm doing a reverse one right now for a lady that's 85. And, she got a quote from another company and they were charging her like 28,000. I'm charging her 5,800 to do the loan.
Wow.
Okay. And they were charging her 28,000 for the same loan. Mine's actually a little bigger. And so, but it just comes to seeing, lining up with those right people that are going to do the right things. I've made mistakes, but I go with my gut and I try to pass it on to everybody else, when I've made a mistake and help other people do it. So I'm always open for calls if people have calls. I mean, Norma's called me a couple of times. I've had a bunch of people from Joe's office call me and just pick my brain. I'm certainly willing to do that to help other people get started.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause, guys.
Thank you. I have cards up here if anybody wants some.
Yes.
So I came in late. I had a 40-minute drive.
Oh, 40 minutes you came
Yeah,
to see
I
me?
feel-
I feel privileged.
Thank
you.
Questions?
I feel privileged. Are you kidding me? So I'm just the part where you said you just